I do want to transition a little bit into kind of some of the stereotypes that some people might have. Right off the bat, did you face any trouble when you first got over there with the guys you were working with, or did they accept you pretty much arms wide open?
So it's about a 50-50. Like, I will tell you across the board, again, looking at perspective and taking a step back and understanding like how the SF culture was. Like, this is a boys' club. It's been this way for a long time. These women are coming into their space, and I understand that, respect that. And I will tell you that across the board, it was very professional. Now, there were situations that I worked with 7 different ODAs out there, and some of that was because they liked us. Some of that was because we got, as soon as they did a rip and a new group was coming in, we got kicked off the compound 2 hours after they landed because they did not want to work with the women. Now, that happened. Like, you definitely got some of those leaders that I had that leader that looked at me and said, I'm only going to take, because we are a 2-man team, I'm only going to take one of you on this mission because I need an actual shooter and you're taking a seat. Or, I heard, you don't, which I always thought this was weird. We're going to go train, but you guys don't get to go train with us because you're chicks. But the like EOD guys and, CA guys could go out there, but just because we are women, they didn't want to train us, because there was always, like, that's the thing about being an SF is selection never ends. They were always training, and you had that. But I will tell you, across the board, especially with my DA team, so my direct action team, when I embedded with them, oh my gosh, they like opened up their arms to me. They were so excited to have me. They gave me my own room, which was kind of nice. And they were just like, we're so excited to have you here. The commander was one of the most professional people. We're still good friends today that you could have asked for. Like, extremely professional, the entire team, and they became my brothers. We lived together. I did not leave them for like 8 months. We did everything together, and it got to the point that even when my partner, she tore both of her MCLs on a mission, and for the next like 6 months, I did operations with me and my interpreter, and there was a requirement, I'm doing air quotes, that you needed 2 CSTs. And I remember my commander's like, well, we've got combat camera, she's a woman and she's doing good, so now so you've got another woman, you'll be fine. If anybody has issues, it'll be fine. And that, because they trusted me, and I was able to work with their intel guy. And so I was in main element going forward. Every operation I was in main element. I was no longer in the C2, and it was one of the most amazing experiences across the board. But yeah, there were definitely challenges, but I think all in all, the credibility, and they saw the impact that we had, they were extremely professional.
So I want to give you the opportunity to kind of address people watching this who might have very strong opinions about women in combat. And I'm gonna buffer with, I have heard some guys, and I won't say their name on here, from the unit, from Delta Force, who speak unbelievably highly of some of the women they've worked with. They have not spoken to what role they worked with them, so I can't speak that, but they praise the hell out of some of the women they've worked with. I've heard other people, not from that unit, who have taken much harsher approaches. I'm going to give you the arguments they would give, not my words, and I want you to kind of respond to them. They would argue they're not as good as shooters as us. They're not as well tailored as combat for us. They're not as strong as us. And as soon as bullets start flying, they either freeze up or I have to worry about people stopping what they're doing to go look at them. There's civilians who feel that way. There's people in the military who feel that way. I'm not saying I feel that way, for the record. What would you say to someone who holds those views?
So there's probably a reason why they're saying that. Maybe they've experienced, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they had like seen a woman do that in those positions. I will tell you firsthand experience. I was forced, it's a very long story, but I was forced to work with an untrained woman who was not a CST on an operation. I don't know still to this day why I was tasked, but they were like, hey, she's going to fly in through 3rd Battalion or whatever, 3rd ID, and she's going to go on op. And she froze up, and she was terrible, and she left her weapon, and she did some of the things that you're talking about. However, the CSTs who were trained, who were efficient, who were effective, that didn't happen. Now, could that have happened? Were there CSTs that left a firearm? Were there CSTs that probably froze up? Absolutely. But are there males that do that exact same thing? Yes. But I think that a lot of times, since the focus is so much more narrow, being that there's so few of us. When there's one woman that does it, it's like it's exasperated into all women are this way. And I think out of everything you said, minus one, I think out of everything you said, it can be trained. Weapons and firearms training you can train to a high proficiency. As far as moving, shooting, communicating, all of that can be effectively trained. Now, the strength piece, we are DNA genetically bound differently. I absolutely agree with that. Now, with that being said, we also bring different skills, different soft skills, different capabilities that I think balances out in a way. And I speak from experience. I used to, after I got out of doing the CST program, I ran my own intel firm. I still have the firm. It's just a cybersecurity company now. And our focus was leveraging women with these capabilities of, either they were trained in SWAT or they came from the CST program or something similar. The reason being is that maybe we can't drag a 250-pound man off the field, off the combat field, off the X, but I can guarantee it, David, I would be able to get in access and placement 100% easier than the guy that probably could drag that 250-pound body off. So I think what we need to do as a community is start looking at, instead of looking at where we're failing, is looking at the positive that having a woman on a team can actually bring to the team. And I know this because I wrote a white paper about it, and I asked women, how did you contribute to being on the Rangers missions or being on the village stability operations? And across the board, having a woman on their team increased overall mission success by 30% easily, because we were able to get more information, we were able to get access and placement. So I think some of these are valid, but I don't think they're all valid. And I think with proper training, you can eliminate a lot of those concerns that are brought up.
Do you think that civilians who might feel that way, where they're staunch, like, well, there shouldn't be women in combat roles or there shouldn't be women in any risky role, do you think it's really just, it's not coming from a place of malice, but more of ignorance?
I would want to know the age group that's saying that, because I feel like that's a boomer age group, in my opinion, of like still wanting women to be barefoot and pregnant. And I say that tongue in cheek, but it's a lot of times they're like, well, women still need to just have desk jobs, or women don't need to be in these positions. Why? Why wouldn't we? I mean, we're seeing it across the board. The numbers don't lie. And I find a lot of times it is ignorance, but it is that age differentiation. I'm finding that individuals within our age or even younger, they're starting to see that women are, we are equals, but differently. Like, there are things that we can bring to the table that males can't bring to the table. And it's unfortunate. I think we're always, not always, but I think we're still going to have a challenging road with getting the males on board, because as you know, it just takes time. It takes usually 20 years for a new generation, new culture to come in and shift. And now that women are in combat roles, I think it's just going to take time. It's going to take that 10 to 20 years, get more women in these executive leadership roles, even in the military, into more of these soft roles. And then I think the naysayers are going to stop being naysayers.
I want to transition now into the JAX Act, and leading up to that, when did you decide personally that it was time for you to go, that your time in the military, you felt like you'd done enough and you wanted to move on?
So I serve in the reserves now. But okay. My active, I was like, I'm going to do my reserve time and get out. But I got out of the SF community it was about 2021. I stepped out. And the reason that I had stepped out is I actually started getting really career focused. I did my last deployment in 2019 to support Atlantic Resolve, and I was supporting SOCUR, doing cyber and electronic warfare operations out there. And I was just at a point, I was actually really exhausted of continuously fighting for a seat at the table, because it's still, you can't, as a woman in the space, and then you're not a tab individual. I had felt like I was still trying to find a seat at the table, knowing what my credibility was. And I was reaching a point that I just wanted to really focus on me, also self-improvement. I was in a bad place in my life in like 18. I'd lost everything, hit rock bottom, a lot of depression, a lot of PTS. And so in 19, I was like, something has to change. And I think one of those things was the decision I think subconsciously, I was like, I need to probably close this chapter in my life. As much as I still want to do these things, I think I'd realized that it's time for the younger generation. It's their turn. Let's focus on my career. So I did that pivotal change in 19, and I decided to move into the reserves and focus on just cybersecurity. And that's what I do now. I'm like, I still love, and I still talk to a lot of my SOF family. I work in a nonprofit, and that's the JAX Act with the Special Operations Association of America. So I still kind of have my hand within the SOF community, but it was just my time. And I think you'll see a lot of SOF operators do that. If they're being real with themselves, they just realize, okay, it's probably time for me to move on and do something new and close that chapter.
Yeah, I mean, from what, again, I don't know because I've never done it, but from what virtually everyone I interview tells me, that the stress rate, you mentally, you just can't, your brain is not meant to be handled that. For some of these guys, you're talking 20 years, 25 years. That's a long time of high stress on your brain. So you said you struggled with